So today I'm chatting with Les Drussel, who's chairman of the Ruislip Manor Chamber of Commerce, and that's affiliated to the Hillingdon Chamber of Commerce. Hi, Les.
Hi.
Give us a bit of history first of the Ruislip Manor Chamber of Commerce. How did it all start?
Well, 22 years ago, the Ruislip Manor Fun Days and Christmas shows started with a group of shopkeepers, of which my wife was one of them. And from there, massive events in 2014, where we had over 10,000 people for the day enjoying themselves with a fun fair, stalls, charity, singing, stage. The reason for saying that is that in 2005, I went round the shops asking for £5 a head towards the cost of the fun day to put on a clown and some music. And we had a couple of shops that were very anti paying £5 to bring children in because they could rob their shops. The shops in those days had problems. I went straight back to the councillor and said that we needed to get cameras into the manor, and this was a great opportunity. So I went round immediately and got a 300 list, a petition, and within 3 or 4 weeks, council and the police produced 4 cameras. They were put into the manor and they were very active, and everyone was very pleased, being one of the first towns to have cameras on the shop fronts. We want to advertise this, and Councillor Mills said, Les, you can't do it under your name. With your fun days, what do you call it? And I said, well, it's the Ruislip Manor Shopkeepers. So we did a big spread in the paper and said that we'd managed to do this. And by talking with him and Nick Hurd, the MP, they said, you know what, why don't you form a Chamber of Commerce? So I spoke to 2 or 3 shopkeepers who said they'd be more than keen. And I thought it was a great idea. And I then phoned up Mike Langham, the chairman of Hillingdon, who does a wonderful job. And he said, why don't you come tomorrow to the 3 MPs breakfast at Heathrow and see what we can do? So I went along. Mike Langham asked me to stand up and said that I was hoping to set up a Chamber of Commerce, but it would have to be affiliated to Hillingdon Chamber. And with that, Nick Hurd jumped up and said, Les, I'm behind you. If that's what you want to do, you've got my backing. And with that, we said thank you. I sent out a note to all the shopkeepers and to the local police and the councillors, and we held our first meeting where I was blessed with all 3 wards of police. Then we had councillors from those wards, and we had 80 people from the town. And that evening we formed the chamber. Nick Hurd specially came from his meetings to give me backing, and from there Ruislip Manor was formed. And in the first year we had 105 members, purely in the ward of Ruislip Manor.
Fantastic work, Les. Now, about the Expo. How did that start and how did you get involved with that?
The Expo is fantastic. Mike Langham and I used to go to the Heathrow events every year, representing Hillingdon and Ruislip Manor. And we thought it would be a fantastic idea if we could only have our own. And what with Mike talking with Andrew Ward and 1 or 2 other people, Expo was born.
And this year's the 5th year, isn't it, I believe?
Yes.
How was the first year? How did that start?
Brunel were very, very good, and some very good sponsors. And it was very successful. So far we've had 4 wonderful hot days with the sun out.
Well, let's cross fingers for nice weather this year as well then. While you're here, Les, let's pick your brain. Have you got any tips for people wanting to start a Chamber of Commerce in a town?
I think it's the personality of the person going around talking to people and giving enthusiasm, because each shop is their own little world. And when we gave a talk to start the Hayes Business Forum, we sat in front of 120 Hayes shopkeepers, looking very severe and interested but not knowing what to do. And I did point out that you're all lovely people, but none of you smile. But when you do smile, you've got wonderful faces. And I believe that you all there have got your own little empires. You sit in your shop with your back to the wall, looking out, and you've got a lovely glass front and the door's closed. Why don't you open it to let the air in and let people come in? Nothing's worse than someone looking at a shop and wondering if they should open the door or not. So I suggest, firstly, you open the door and let people in. Secondly, if your staff smiled and were courteous, this would go a long way. And another little tip is that if there's a chance that your product that you're producing can be put outside the shop, why don't you pay the fee for a metre in depth outside and put your goods on show as a loss leader so people can come and have a look at what's there. And secondly, if they come in the door and you're there smiling, they feel that they're at home. Do not pressurise them immediately come in, but be observant and kind to people, and you'll see a big difference.
Yeah, some good tips.
Well, from that tip, 3 weeks later, we had another meeting in Hayes, and I was getting out of the car park, and this very large gentleman come up, and he stuck his hand out and said, "Put it there, my son." Although I probably am 10 times older than him, he said, "Thank you. In these last 3 weeks, my shop has gone up 30%, all because I've opened the door and more people are smiling." And at that stage, when we went into the meeting, they then said they'd like to form the Chamber of Commerce.
Now, I know your working career has been varied, Les. Have you got any stories or any advice you can pass on to us?
I started my civil engineering apprenticeship on Hanger Lane Underpass, would you believe, in 1957. And I was there with my collar and tie, all very well dressed, in a boiler suit, cleaning, whilst the main council officials were there having a board meeting. And I was called aside by the site general manager, who was the bigwig, and told to get out of my boiler suit and make tea for 24 guests. And I said, why do I have to do it when we have a canteen, we have a canteen manager, we have a tea lady, and we have various other staff? And he said, you are not to question my judgment, you are to do as I tell you. So I was told to get on with it, and I did, and I changed and went out and served all the teas. And when this big meeting had finished, Mr. Parr called me over and said to me, I heard you having a little discussion with the site manager. I then explained what I said, and he said, that's a fair comment. We're in wooden huts, and there's lots of coat-hooks with donkey jackets and hard hats and all these things. But we're talking old days now. So he said to me, you see that hat up there? That's the road sweeper, and that's the one that lights the oil lights at night. And you go up, engineer, sales, blah, 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 to general manager. Now, he said, where do you see yourself? And I said, in the boss's seat. He said, well, if you can wear all those hats, you'll get there. And from that day, they trained me to do everything possible on civil engineering. And at the age of 21, I was sent to build the first precast bridge over the River Avon in Bristol. And from there, every time I had an opportunity for a door to open, I took it. And I think you've got to believe in what you're doing and have the faith in people and the wish to progress and help. And the more you help people, in other ways, help comes back to you. I think with the Chamber, I enjoy helping all members go through start to finish. When they're starting up, helping them with advice and trying to lead them in the correct direction, because so many people can get caught. And if you give them some advice and work alongside them, if they want to carry on doing that, that's great. If they think they've done enough, that's great. But I have satisfaction that I've helped people, and a lot of shops in this manner have all had my help.
Well, thanks very much for chatting to us today on Uxbridge FM. That's very interesting, Les.
Great.
And as a reminder, the 5th Hillingdon Business Expo is the 30th of May at Brunel University. All the information you need to know is online at hillingdonexpo.com.